I'm finally here in China after about 2 years of studying Mandarin intensively every single day to the point of very comfortable fluency. So after having watched thousands of hours of Chinese content, I'm finally able to see this place up close with my own eyes, and I'm finally able to put my fluency in Mandarin to use. It's obviously insane thinking about the fact that I'll be spending the next year here, going through China's high school, and the months leading up to the flight to Beijing felt progressively more surreal, and the fact that I was going, it never quite set in. It started with the confirmation that Hebei International School had accepted me. Then I handed in my resignation to my high school. I cried on the last day of school. I got my visa. The flight to Beijing was confirmed. Obviously, a lot of strong feelings of excitement as well as sadness about leaving my entire life in Stockholm to go live in a country I've never been to. Upon arriving, however, all of those strong feelings pretty much just disappeared instantly. I've kind of been in a sort of flow state for this entire month. I pretty much haven't had the time to even look back since my flight landed. With this series of videos, I hope to talk a lot about my experience with Chinese society, people, the education system, way of life, social media, and a lot more. Of course, as someone who studied Mandarin to comfortable fluency in 2 years, I also hope to provide a lot of tips and strategies to help you get there yourself. Just a small hint, the secret sauce is immersion and Anki. It's been an intense first month, to say the least, but at the same time it has felt incredibly calm and still. It simultaneously feels like I've been here for just a couple days, but it also feels like I've already lived here for a year. During just this short time, it's clear that bonds have been formed that will last for a lifetime. Upon landing in Beijing, we spent a few days just checking out the place, looking at Tiananmen Square, visiting the Heavenly Palace, trying the food, exploring the malls. We then took the high-speed train down to Shijiazhuang, where the high school is, and this is where I've been living now for the past month. During the weekdays, we sleep at a dorm building on the other side of the street from the school. The dorms us international students get is obviously much more comfy than the dorms regular students get, since we have to share the room with only one other student, whereas the regular students have to share the room with 5 others. During the weekends and holidays, we go to our host families. Now, I do speak Mandarin very fluently, and I can understand close to everything that people say. In fact, my pronunciation is apparently so good that one taxi driver thought I was Chinese until halfway through the journey when I mentioned that I'm from Sweden. But despite my level of Chinese, it is still very hard to communicate naturally, given how different the conventions are between the West and China. For example, the most annoying thing in the world to me is when you're gathered at a hot pot with your extended family, and you'll have all of the elders tell you, hey, try this, have some of this, while pointing to some trypophobia-inducing, vaguely food-like object seemingly harvested from the fucking Zen dimension. So, of course, you will feel pressured into trying it, and it usually tastes like nothing or it tastes horrible. Then, a couple minutes later, they may even tell you again, hey, have some more of this. And my brain usually has two options at that point. Either I say that I'm already full, or I let out a measly 不要吧. No matter what, it's a loss for everyone involved. Most hot pot dinners are basically just me trying to fight the insanely strong urge to kill everyone at the table. Of course, some of the best food I've ever had has also been here in China. Most prominently, the dumplings are so insanely good, life-changing, I would even say. I wasn't really someone who especially liked dumplings before going to China, but now I am such a sucker for dumplings. There's specifically this place close to the school, which we've nicknamed the dumpling place, that has some insanely good dumplings. You can get a whole plate of them for about 15 RMB, which is equivalent to about $2 to $3 US.
路从今夜白，月是故乡明。此刻我带来了一位新朋友，来跟大家打个招呼。
好，大家好，我是来自瑞典的留学生 Neo， 我的中文名字叫做毛新，目前在石家庄市第42中学学习。
那今天呢，我将带着 Neo。
So I also went on national television, which was a really fun experience. Even though looking back on the footage, I feel like I look super awkward. They also forced me to wear the school uniform, which I think looked kind of wacky. The whole experience didn't really leave an impression on me, though, besides that I can now say that I've been on national television in a country of over 1 billion people.
来完成这幅作品。Neo 已经沉浸其中了，别着急，接下来我们还要去领略纸上的月亮。
So you might be wondering, what's school like? Well, at the moment, all of us exchange students have classes together simply to improve our Chinese so that we can later join the normal classes that regular Chinese students have, and we will be able to do that in about a month. However, since my Chinese is by far the best out of everyone, I don't really learn much at all during these classes, so I kind of feel like my Chinese has only barely improved here during my time in China. Our daily routine it looks like this. We wake up sometime before 7. We go to classes at 8. We have 5 40-minute lessons, each with a 10-minute break in between. We have a 1-hour lunch break at 11:50. We stay at our dorms to sleep for an hour. We then go to classes at 14. We have 4 more lessons. We then get 1.5 hours of dinner break, and finally we get 1.5 hours of self-study time before we go back to the dorms, where we will usually grab some milk tea and chat for 30 minutes and then go to sleep. My absolute favorite thing about China has to be the green space. It might sound overly dramatic, but when you're walking around some of these parks, it can really feel like you're temporarily in some kind of utopia. While there are the big parks that are sprinkled throughout the city, there's also the community green space that you find in between the tall residential buildings. If you look at the map of any Chinese city, you will see that the blocks are incredibly big, like 500 by 500 meters. Within these blocks, you will usually find residential communities with a couple of really tall apartment buildings with quite a lot of green space in between. So in order to go and grab food, pick up a package, get a haircut, or do shopping, you usually don't even have to cross a single street, since you will usually find all of those services on your own block. My favorite thing to do whenever I have free time is just to walk around randomly. Wherever you go, there's always something interesting to see, and my primary target when walking is to go down the most sketchy looking alleyways. I don't know why, but I'm just drawn to these less developed areas, since they usually paint a much deeper history than the more newly redeveloped areas. Now, the thing that will undoubtedly leave the deepest impression on my life is the people I've met. The fellow exchange students here have essentially become the best friends I've ever had. The fact that we're all spending most of our time with each other and that we're all trying to figure out this new country means that we've all become really close during an extremely short time. Our group of exchange students has 5 students from Thailand, 4 from Italy, for some reason, an American, and me, the Swedish guy. We're currently having a week-long break from school due to the Mid-Autumn Festival as well as the national holiday, which means that we have to stay with our host families for the next week, which means that we won't be able to see each other as easily this week. And even though it's just 1 week, we were all feeling very depressed about leaving each other for such a long time, which makes me wonder how sad it will be at the end of the exchange when we all have to go home. During the week-long break, my host family took me to the Chinese countryside where they grew up, which was a really fun and interesting experience, although it felt quite unhygienic out there. In the Chinese countryside, it's mostly elders that didn't ride the urbanization wave who lived there. The countryside is clearly much less developed than the city, but it was sobering to see that it wasn't as bad as I was expecting it to be. And this is just the beginning of what is undoubtedly going to be an incredible chapter in my life. The highs and lows during just this short time have been some of the most intense I've ever experienced, and we're barely even a tenth of the way through this thing. I simultaneously look forward to when I will be able to go back to Sweden to tell everyone about what I've experienced, but I'm also so sad thinking about the idea of leaving everyone that I've met here. It's weird thinking about how my little thought I had around 2 years ago of going to China for a high school exchange actually manifested itself and is in fact now flourishing.